Sometimes it begins with a very simple, almost unnoticeable thought. You catch yourself looking at your life as if from the outside, not in a dramatic sense, not like in a film, but rather as something that is happening, not quite to you. You walk down the street, talk to people, do various things, smile in the right places, nod when that is expected of you, and all of this looks perfectly normal, even convincing. But inside there is a feeling that between you and what is happening there is a thin layer, as if you are not living, but taking part in a very well-staged rehearsal of life. And the strangest part is that this does not always hurt. Sometimes it even calms you. There are people who live with this feeling for years, almost without noticing it. They call it fatigue, or apathy, or just a phase. But if you are honest, it is not exactly fatigue. It is rather the feeling that you are not quite here, that you exist in some safer, softer mode, as if you have turned the volume down on your own life. My name is Eli, and I think a lot about things that people usually try not to think about. And if you know this feeling that you are as if playing yourself, that between who you are inside and how you live on the outside there is a strange gap, then maybe this video will feel uncomfortably accurate to you. Here is what is strange. Most people are afraid of being inauthentic. They are afraid of falseness, afraid of masks, afraid that one day it will turn out that they have lived someone else's life. And yet almost no one notices how much in our culture, in our upbringing, in the very structure of modern life is designed precisely so that we live not quite for real. From childhood, we are taught to be convenient versions of ourselves. Calm, reasonable, predictable, the kind that can be fitted in. And very early we understand one simple thing. If you are fully yourself, you can lose love, approval, safety. But if you are a little bit not yourself, you can survive. And here the first, very quiet deal appears. You move a little away from what you really feel. You muffle it a little, simplify it a little, adjust a little. And in return you get the feeling that the world has become more manageable. You become lighter for others, and at the same time less heavy for yourself. At first this looks like adaptation, like growing up, like a normal process. But time passes, and suddenly you notice a strange thing. You no longer quite understand where you are real and where you are the one you are playing, where your desires are, and where there are just habitual roles, where your reactions are, and where there are learned answers. And here a very strange feeling appears. On the one hand, emptiness, and on the other, relief. Because being not quite real is, in a sense, safe. If you do not live fully, then you do not fully risk. If you do not fully feel, then it does not fully hurt. If you are not fully present, then you cannot fully lose. It is like living with the lights turned off. You see worse, but you are also less frightened by what you might see. Many people think that they have lost themselves, but more often they did not lose themselves. They simply once, very carefully, moved themselves aside, to make it easier, to make it quieter, to make it not so painful. And this decision is almost never conscious. It happens in small things, in how you did not say something important, in how you kept silent, in how you pretended that you did not care, in how you chose the more correct option instead of the more alive one. And each time you seem to tell yourself, it is fine, next time. But for some reason, next time never comes. And here another very unpleasant truth appears. Very many people live not their own life, not because someone forced them, but because it turned out to be more convenient. Real life is noisy, unpredictable, untidy. There is a lot of shame in it, a lot of mistakes, awkwardness, conflicts, uncertainty. And the not quite real one is quieter, smoother, more predictable. In it you are as if always at a safe distance from yourself. And at some point you begin to confuse this with peace. You say, I am just a calm person, or I do not like drama, or I am fine as it is. But if you listen honestly, this is not always calmness. Sometimes it is simply absence, absence of sharpness, absence of risk, absence of depth. And here is one thing that almost no one likes to talk about. Being alive is not always pleasant. It is not only about joy, it is also about vulnerability. about the possibility of being rejected, about the possibility of making a mistake, about the possibility of turning out to be not who you wanted to be. And being not quite real means as if living in draft mode, as if you are always telling yourself, this is not the final version of me. This is just temporary. But a year passes, then 2, then 10, and temporary becomes a way of life. You can notice this by a very simple sign. You rarely really want something, not because you have everything, but because you have forgotten how to want. Wanting is dangerous, because if you really want, you will have to risk. You will have to change something. You will have to leave this warm, half-asleep state. And in it, strangely enough, there is comfort. Because if you do not live fully, then you do not fully answer for your life. You can always say, well, this is not really me. This is just circumstances. This is temporary. I have not started yet. And here we come to the thinnest and most painful part. Very often being not quite real is a form of protection. Protection from disappointment, from shame, from pain, from the feeling that you are living the wrong life and do not know how to get out of it. If you do not live for real, then it is as if you also do not really lose. It is like looking at your life through glass. You see everything, but it does not touch you completely. And sometimes this saves you. People who have experienced a lot of pain often do exactly this. They do not become cold. They become muted, as if they turn the volume down so that it never hurts like that again. And there is its own logic in this, its own humanity. But the problem is that together with the pain, everything else is turned down as well. Joy becomes quieter. Interest becomes weaker. Meaning becomes more blurred. And life gradually turns into something that you do not hate, but that you also do not love. You just exist in it. And here a strange paradox appears. The longer you live not quite real, the scarier it becomes to live for real. Because real life begins to seem too bright, too risky, too unpredictable, as if you have sat in half-light for too long, and now you are afraid of the light. And here many people say, I am just like that. That is my character. I do not need much. Sometimes that is true, and sometimes it is a very beautiful form of surrender. Surrender to your own life. But there is one more, the quietest and the most frightening thought. Sometimes being not quite real is not only protection from pain, it is also protection from responsibility. Because if you live for real, you have to admit, this is your life. Not a draft, not a rehearsal, not a temporary stage. And if you live as if not quite, you can always tell yourself, the real one will start later. And here runs the line between a temporary shelter and quiet self-deception. Because later may not come, not in a dramatic sense, not because something will necessarily happen, but simply because you will never decide to begin. And here the story becomes very simple and very uncomfortable. No one will come and turn your life on for you. No one will say, now you can be alive. And at the same time, this is not a call, not motivation, not a shout. Because the truth is that sometimes a person really needs to live not quite real, to survive, to get through, to not break. Sometimes this is not weakness. It is a form of taking care of yourself. The only question is one, are you hiding there or are you living there? And perhaps the most honest moment in life is not when you suddenly become real, but when you quietly admit, I have been living not fully for a long time, without drama, without accusations, without beautiful words, just as a fact. And sometimes that is already enough for something very slow, almost unnoticeable, to begin to shift. Not toward heroism, not toward sharp changes, but toward a little more honesty. Because maybe being alive does not mean burning every day. Maybe it just means no longer pretending that all of this is a rehearsal. Because there will be no more rehearsals.